Hey guys, this is Flora from Nightwish, and you're listening to the Aftershocks podcast. Enjoy.
Prepare yourself to be blown away by the seismic sounds and scrutiny of Aftershocks podcast with Chris Aiken and Matt Hartnett.
The new podcast here, and it is me, Chris Aiken, and that song we just heard was simply called Noise. It is from the new release from Nightwish called Human to Nature, and on the line right now is a lady that's making a lot of noise with Nightwish. She's back for her second album with the band, and she's quite the singer herself. It is Miss Flora Jansen. Flora, how are you?
Thank you. Good introduction. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Let me ask you right from the start, Flora. Is it human to nature, or is it human and nature and each side has a name?
Well, the album title is simply Human Nature, but okay. the little symbols in between could result to a little wordplay where you could also consider human nature as one word, since it means something else as human, separate from nature. It's only to emphasize the fact that it's, multi-interpretational in that sense, and we are even part of nature. So it's both separate from each other. It's about our human nature, the way that we are, and the fact that we're, as much part of nature as any other living being on this planet.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about this release. It's definitely... It might be the best reviewed, not that reviews mean a whole lot, but it's definitely one of the best reviewed releases in Nightwish history, which, that has to make you feel good. What do you attribute that to? Do you think that it's just that people are ready for such a wide-ranging record as this?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it's hard to put your finger on why, and why is this album doing more than the other? Because every time you release something, you think you've just released the best of the best, because that's the best of what you've done so far. And it's always exciting to see what it will do. But yeah, I agree. It's exceptionally well reviewed and very worldwide picked up so well as well. We're hitting the charts even in Australia. That never happened before. So I don't know what it is really. Could it be the pandemic that just forces everybody to really sit down with music like this? I mean, it's not exactly, fast food music that you just consume and forget. You kind of need, it's more like a fine dining experience where you sit down with for a while, and if you don't do it, you might miss out on a bit of the details of it, and maybe it's that.
Sure. It could very well be, especially the second half of the release. And I really want to dive into that part first, if that's okay.
Sure.
The extensive track, All the Works of Nature That Adorn the World. You know, I know it's broken into 9 parts or whatever, but
yes,
this is one of the grandest and most expansive works I think that's ever been recorded. For you as a vocalist and for the band in general, how difficult is it to create as well as perform a musical piece that is that large and has so many phases and parts to it? Because I can't imagine, especially the creative process, I have to think is incredibly difficult for something that big.
Well, you know, the thing is that funny with a band as Nightwish. I mean, we are a band, so we have a bass player and we have a guitar player and we have a keyboard player and a drummer, and then we have a multi-instrumentalist and me, and we can do all kinds of stuff, but we can't play a classical suite together. Which is, you know, All the Works is a classical suite, and it builds how it's built, and so it's an orchestra playing, not
right.
us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have our songwriter who writes everything, including this, and that's Tuomas. I mean, I'm not objective, but I think the man is master in writing. He has these things just in his head, and bit by bit they came out. And like a classical suite is built up out of parts, it doesn't just drop out of the sky. It needs to just come out all at once. It comes in pieces, just as the song does, and it takes you by the hand through all kinds of natural phenomena, if you will. You can imagine things with it even, yeah, so it's not possible for us as a band to play it. Even when the pandemic would be done, we can't just say, yeah, hey, welcome Wacken Open Air or whatever festival, we're going to play All the Works today, because we're not on it as a band. Troy, he's playing on it. I'm singing on it in 3 different parts. So is Tuomas playing some classical piano, but the rest of the playing credits goes to the orchestra that played it. Funny enough, though, to mention is that also we are seen as a symphonic metal band, so we've been having symphonic orchestra on our records, and have the luxury to work with fantastic orchestras to come to fantastic sounds. But on this album, all the orchestration is left only for that classical suite where we're not playing on, and so the 9 band songs are completely without. There's a string quartet and there's a choir, but the whole orchestration, as we've had before, is not on that.
Right. Sure. Now, with that piece, you know, obviously, you know, like you just said, you have the orchestra that plays the music, so to speak. Mm-hmm. That is one of those things that is hit or miss with fans a lot of the times. I know a lot of bands try it, but a lot of bands try it with their own music and it sort of doesn't fit. It definitely fits in this case because it was written to do that. Do you look at it as a part of Nightwish, or do you look at it as something that is almost like a separate entity from Nightwish, even though it's all packaged the same way?
No, I would say it's from us, because I feel very much connected to it, as I did with the other songs. And it's maybe because I sang on it, or maybe just because the style is so similar to the rest of the album, even though it takes a dive into the deeper classical things. It's definitely Nightwish. So no, I feel like it's part of us. Yeah.
Sure. Do you see the band doing more music like this, or maybe even independent Nightwish releases that are specifically the orchestra pieces?
I don't know about that. I would say that's not so likely to happen, but I can imagine that it would happen again, that something like this would happen. But I know that Tuomas is not somebody that starts to think ahead, like already now, oh, for the next album, I would like to do this again. I think he would more think like, yeah, it would be good to, it comes as it comes.
Sure. Definitely. Well, Floor, obviously one. I don't want to say change in the band lineup, but a change in status, I guess, in the band lineup with Kai being converted from you guys as touring drummer to a full-time member of the band now. What changed that facilitated that move?
Well, when Kaito came into our group, that was during the rehearsals for Endless Forms Most Beautiful, right before the actual recording, which meant that he had barely any time to prepare. He had to learn the songs really fast, and B, he was going to play them so that it would sound as much as Jukka, our previous drummer, would have played it. Whereas now he was involved from the very first beginning, so he had way more time to really prepare and to turn the songs more towards his own style of playing. And I would say that's the biggest difference. Okay.
Was he part of the creative piece this time, or is that
we have one songwriter in our band who writes everything, and that's the one. So we all get the demos, and from there we start to add our colors to it, better said. Yeah, and so now we have Kaitsu's colors instead of Jukka's.
Okay. Excellent. One of the songs that jumped out at me listening to the new record is Harvest. It just has kind of a, not unique to the band, but unique to this release feel. It's got that folk element added into it that I'm assuming to almost brought to the band. You've mentioned him a couple times, and I think he's as close to genius as a musical guy is, because he brings so many different things every single time. Do you, when you're working on music, does he kind of guide you and the band as to the song, or do you guys bring your flavor to what he's creating?
It's a bit of both, I guess. It's a cooperation, really, where Thomas is interested in what we have to bring, and he has a clear idea of what he wants. And sometimes we come with ideas that goes against what he had in mind, but he's very open for the suggestions of other things, and that really works well. But it's good to have somebody who is so has such a clear view of what he wants, that really works easy. But then the rest is up to feeling each other naturally and musically, and that goes so well that, it's a really easy, smooth cooperation there.
Sure. And it's a proven winner. I mean, Nightwish is the biggest symphonic metal band in the world. So, you can't argue that, right? No,
that's it. And that's, I agree to saying that he is just a genius, Tuomas. So, good songs, they come a long way.
They definitely do. Well, Floor, for you personally, obviously this is your second release with the band, and when you came in, it was a very strange and abrupt way. And it wasn't your fault. You just came in, you were brought in, and you joined the band. But obviously, the old, the previous singer and the way that all went down was very weird. For you, now that the smoke is cleared somewhat, and you're now on your second release, are you much more comfortable now as a part of the band? And even more to the point, are the fans a lot more accepting and a lot less, bringing up the comparison thing? Do they just accept you now as the singer?
Well, it's almost 8 years, so I really don't feel that there's smoke still left to clear up. Or
fair enough.
You're mentioning 2 albums, but you mentioned only the 2 studio releases. We've been releasing 3 DVDs in the meantime. So it's like, for me, it feels like a lifetime ago that I started. I feel very much part of the band, and I feel like I feel very well accepted. But I have to say that I've had the luxury of being accepted by the large majority of the fans, seemingly from the get-go. I mean, even my very first show in Seattle, fans got a chance to get their money back because they bought a ticket for a show with Annette, and instead I show up out of the blue, half prepared because of the short time that I had, and it became a very special night that I think a lot of people look back to really fondly, like they've been to something really exceptional and one of a kind. And as soon as the news reached the world, and reached South America, for instance, where we were going to tour later on, the ticket sales actually increased instantly, which was a really, really clear welcome to the band kind of signal. And ever since, it's been really good. And I'm sure there are also a lot of people that would have preferred Annette to stay, or would have wanted Tadia back, or never wanted any of them to leave. But and comparisons, I guess that's in the human nature to keep doing. But usually with what I can see, and I don't read endless of these messages, but it's usually with a very open mind, or people saying, I love them all, or, well, you know, and you can't win everybody.
Right.
Anyway, so, yeah.
I know it's old news, and I don't want to beat on it because it is old news, but I'm curious for you, when you first stepped out on that stage that first time in Seattle, how nerve-wracking was that?
Oh, horrible. It's like coming into a classroom naked and you find out when you're there. That's how it felt like. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. As soon as I'm still part of my French, but as soon as the intro started, I got this feeling of like, Flora, what on earth are you doing? What are you doing? Where are you? Everything went so fast I could barely grasp the fact that I was in the States. I couldn't remember which city it was really, because the traveling went so fast, or not fast at all actually. I already thought we were in Seattle the day before we were in Seattle, and the thought of we're gonna do this was constantly there. But when I was actually doing it, I almost freaked out, and everything in me wanted to run away. But then it was time to go on stage. And even that part I didn't know for sure. Is this the right moment during the intro? It was nerve-wracking, really.
That's fun. Well, Flora, obviously the world is locked up right now because of this pandemic. And, you know, for you guys, for musicians, I'm sure this is even more crazy because it really limits almost everything that you do. So how have you been dealing with the pandemic? Are you home? Is it just extended time to spend, you know, with your kids, or how? I guess how have you been spending the time?
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, we can't tour. Fortunately, we can still make music. We can still do interviews. You know, creativity doesn't get locked up so easily, so that's a good thing. But it's really sad to see our entire world tour going to ruins, because, well, we should have already been in China, we should have already been in South America now, or should be there. It's really a weird thought, but at the same time, I'm trying to see it as positive as possible. There are a lot of things I cannot do, but there are a lot of things that I can do. And indeed, I have more time to spend at home with my husband and daughter. I have 2 horses to ride and a garden to keep, and I've actually been getting more space in my system to start writing music again, which is the first time in 8 years since I joined Nightwish.
Excellent. Does the pandemic or the lifestyle, I guess, of the pandemic, does it make it harder to go back? It's interesting with you, and I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. I know, obviously, you know, your husband's a musician as well. And so there's that part where I think automatically, you know, you as a family are used to being, you know, on the road and working as a band. At the same time, you know, you have a young child, which definitely makes it, the more, you know, I have kids, and the more you spend time with the kids, the more you don't want to not spend time with the kids, you know. So what does that do for you, you know, as far as this lifestyle shift? Is it going to be hard to kind of pick back up and go again, or do you think you'll be so stir crazy at that point that it'll be fairly easy?
Well, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. It might just be a bit of both, because I agree, the more time you spend at home, the more you get into the comfort of the routines, and yeah, like you say, it's you don't want to miss a minute of them growing up, your kids. At the same time, I dearly miss being on the road, being with my bands, playing shows, and getting out a little bit further than the local grocery shop, which is already feels like you're taking a fucking risk.
Right.
So yeah, you know, it's. I don't know how it will really feel because it's only been, if you think about it, it's been only a few weeks.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the way it looks like now, those few weeks are going to be months.
Right.
And yeah, it could be that the entire 2020 is completely showless.
Right.
Now it's spring here in Sweden, so the weather starts to get better. There's more light. I can be outside. There are all kinds of projects outside to pick up. But imagine that we're still having to do this when the weather starts to go back to gray and dark and there's nothing to be done outside. Then I think I'm going to go seriously mental. But I don't know. But maybe by then I'm so used to it. I'm also a person, and so is my husband, that always finds something to do. So the word bored does not really exist in my vocabulary. Or
Right.
if it does, I don't know what it means. I don't know how to be bored. So I'm sure we'll find a way, but it's something special.
Sure, definitely. It just has nothing to do with either band other than the curiosity factor. Are you and your husband competitive musically? Because obviously you do different styles of music, but at the same time, you know, but two very big bands.
No, God. We have only one small child in our family, and that's our daughter. And she has all the right to be childish. She's 3. We don't do that kind of stuff, but we do joke about it sometimes because we both have the luxury to have golden records, and we put them up on the wall. So when he comes home with one, I immediately also want one because I can't have more golden records of Sabaton on the wall than a Nightwish. So, but that's all in good humor, of course.
Sure, of course. Well, something that is not good humor is just good listening. It is the new album from Nightwish. It's called Human Nature. And Floor, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track from the record to wrap up the interview. Maybe tell us a quick story about it. So what would you like us to end this with?
Oh, I would want you to play House to Heart.
Okay.
House to Heart is about empathy. And I think in times like these, human empathy is going to carry us over all this because there's so much power in the simple question, and I mean the genuine question of how are you? And not how are you as in, I know in America it's sometimes how are you? You answer it with how are you, and that just is more like a greeting. Sure. I mean, the actual question, how are you? There is a lot of power in that, to feel heard, to feel loved, and to feel that people care. And when Thomas came with this song, I just immediately loved the way he gave a twist to this. So, if anything, House to Heart.
All right, well, let's check it out now. It is House to Heart. It is Nightwish right here on Aftershocks.
Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website, at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.